Hello, it's Street Talk with Loretta Rose on location in Phoenix City at the marvelous Troy University Riverfront campus. On today's show, we have a live audience and a very interesting and meaningful topic. We're going to be talking about financial literacy. You don't want to miss it. Stick around. We'll be back after this.
Street Talk with the Loretta Rose Show presents, live and in person, a panel discussion on how to easily fix your credit report. Want to buy a house, own land, or start a business, but keep getting rejected because of your credit report? Well, the frustration is over. The experts Tony Love from Love Consumer Law and Benjamin Finley from the Finley Firm are committed to helping you clean up your act. Your credit report, that is. This live event at Troy University campus in Phoenix City, Alabama will feature a panel discussion with Q&A. We look forward to seeing you from 5 to 6 p.m. There will be light refreshments from Chick-fil-A. Come with your questions and let Tony and Benjamin help you to reach your dreams.
Welcome back. It's Street Talk with Loretta Rose, and you're watching here on cable TV. This is Being TV. We're in Phoenix City, Alabama at Troy University Riverfront campus. One of my favorite places to host a show, and we want to give a shout out to the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Dionne Rosser-Mims, for allowing us to come in, and she is such a servant leader, and we'll appreciate her in her leadership. Well, today this is going to be great. I am excited. We're talking about financial literacy in the modern era. And I want to let you know our guest panelists, experts that is on with us today, this was their idea. And I want to thank them for allowing Street Talk to be able to host this for the community. So we're going to start with attorney Tony Love with Love Consumer Law, who has an extensive background in this topic for discussion. So I'm going to allow the attorneys to let you know how long they've been practicing law, where their law firm is, and their services that they provide. So we'll start with you, sir.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tony Love. I'm an attorney. My office is located in Atlanta, Georgia. I have been in practice as an attorney since 1993, and the majority of that time has been in the area of consumer protection. For many years, I represented one of the national credit reporting agencies for about 20 years, and recently I opened my own law firm representing consumers when they have problems with their credit reports and similar consumer protection issues. And I'm happy to be here today to talk about these issues with you.
Awesome. We appreciate you and your experience that you're going to bring to the community with this panel discussion. And next we have attorney Ben Finley with the Finley Firm. And what I would like to let this community know, the Finley Firm name circulates in the community widely because they do so much in the community. And I want to give a shout out to attorney Nick Jackson, who reached out to me as well, who is with the Finley Firm, and also Brittany Gray. They are definitely community servants. And today on this show, what you're going to find out is you're going to get a glimpse of what modern day and time attorney looks like and what they're doing. I have never seen what I've seen with some of the young attorneys at Finley Firm, how they get out in the community and go to doors and talk to people and get involved. That's what you all do. And I want to say thank you so much for entrusting this platform to share with what you're doing for the community.
Well, I appreciate you saying all those kind words, Loretta, and really want to thank you for taking lead on the things that you do in the community and the space that you provide us a forum and a platform to share the information that we're able to share today. And I think it's really important to recognize, like you said, Nick Jackson and Brittany Gray, Kirk Reed as well, and all of us, including myself, have deep roots here. So in terms of our community, this community, many of us may have gone away or off to school or worked in places like Atlanta or Mobile or other parts of the country, but our roots are here. Our DNA is here. My mother's from here. My aunts and uncles and cousins all went to Central High School. Nick Jackson's a graduate of Central High School here, a product of its public school systems, and was at the top of his law school class. Kirk Reed's family's third generation, Russell County. Brittany Gray, Russell County. So all of us are from here and have been here for a long, long time. And we know that we would not be in the positions we're in if we had not gotten folks that helped raise us, whether it were teachers or coaches in the athletic area or academically, to put us in the position. So what we want to do, obviously, is give back to the community, and we realize how important that is. And part of that, and to that end, includes things like today, the seminar and information we're going to provide. So thank you for having us.
Wow, wow, wow. My pleasure. That is wonderful. See, I didn't know that. And this is what we want the community to understand and connect with what is here. I didn't know you all had that much history in this community. Amazing. So what we're going to do is take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to just dive right into the questions. We have about 9 questions, and we'll try to get to all of them, and then we'll have Q&A after all the questions. Stick around. It's Street Talk with Loretta Rose. You're watching here on Beam TV.
What is community? Is it a neighborhood? The businesses and homes inside it? Maybe community isn't just a place. Maybe it's a state of mind that when we care together, cheer together, we're closer to what really counts. At Beam, we're finding new ways to bring us all closer. And you'll find us right out there with you, because community is always on our mind. Beam, bringing East Alabama more.
Welcome back. We're talking about financial literacy in the modern era here on Street Talk, and we're on location today at Troy University Riverfront campus. All right, we have Attorney Love and Attorney Finley, and we have some populated consumer questions that we're going to share with you, and they're going to answer. And what we'll do is go through all of the questions, and then towards the end, we'll have some Q&A if you all have some questions for us, and they're going to be happy to answer them for you. All right, so our first question is, how many credit reporting agencies are out there keeping information on us? I've always thought 3.
And that's what a lot of people think, is they think initially of the large 3 credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and certainly those are what are called the national credit reporting agencies. But there are many, many other credit reporting agencies that we don't hear about as frequently that impact almost every part of our financial lives. There are credit reporting agencies, for example, that keep specialized credit reports on your rental history or your check writing history. There are other credit reporting agencies that issue reports totally related to your applications for insurance. There are other credit reporting agencies that issue credit reports and collect credit report information related to your background if you go and apply for a job. And the important thing, I think, for consumers to remember, in addition to knowing that there are lots of credit reporting agencies out there, other than just the big 3, are their rights, which we'll talk about, apply to all of those consumer reporting agencies, not just the big 3. And so it's important to know who's keeping information about you and what your rights are concerning that information if it's not accurate.
I want to know who's keeping information about me, and I know the people do too. You deserve to know that. Wow. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, no, just to echo what Tony was saying, everything that you may apply for is being scrutinized in that way. And so they have access to information, and through technology, they're able to pull up information from a myriad of different options, whether it's open a bank account, taking out a mortgage, or like Tony was saying. So it's important to provide accurate information and to make sure that, and Tony will walk us through this in a minute, things to be aware of, wherein there are improprieties varieties, and there are irregularities in that, but there are also some things that the reporting agencies do that are improper that the community needs to know or be aware of.
Wow, wow, that's good to know. All right, we're going to go on to question number 2, and we have actually 9 questions. The next one is, what type of information do credit reporting agencies keep on us?
So, like we mentioned earlier, the credit reporting agencies keep lots of information on us. How often we open accounts, which accounts we open, the names of the banks and other creditors where we open accounts, how frequently we pay our bills, whether we're ever late on our bills, whether we've been turned over to collections, whether any accounts have been charged off. The credit reporting agencies also keep information about our personal background, such as where we've lived and what our telephone numbers are, and our social security number, of course, and our date of birth. So all of that is information that goes into these consumer reports that companies use when we apply for credit or employment or insurance or an apartment. And those are the types of things that consumer reporting agencies keep on all of us through various sources.
Yeah, and employment as well, too.
Yeah, well, employment, and like Tony was saying, they keep all this information, but you'll also find Tony has handled this, and as much of this as anybody in the country. Our firm has handled those matters, but also been involved in disclosure of these informations in things like data breach, where we've been involved in the Marriott data breach, Equifax, Home Depot, and other data breaches. So all of this information is incredibly important. It needs to be secure, and we found in these breaches with technology and litigation that we've been involved in results in disclosure, obviously, and damages to people. Obviously, if someone gets your social security number or your bank account information, I mean, it's very serious. So it's important to protect that information.
Wow, that's good. Good information. All right, number 3. How can a person find out what is in their credit report? How can they find out?
Well, if you want to find out what's in your credit report with the national credit reporting agencies, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, one easy way to do that is to go to the government's website that's been set up, annualcreditreport.com, and you're entitled to several free copies of your credit reports each year. If you go into these other types of credit reporting agencies, such as the insurance credit reporting agencies or employment, then you can contact them if you've received a letter advising you that you've been denied credit or employment or insurance, and it will give you the contact information for that credit reporting agency. It's important to know that one of your rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act is to have a copy of what's in your file. So regardless of whether it's one of the big 3 credit reporting agencies or whether it's one of these smaller specialty credit reporting agencies, you have a legal right to know what's in your credit file so that you can review it, assess whether it's accurate or inaccurate, and if you find anything that's inaccurate, you have the right to make a dispute to try to have that information corrected.
So, they want to know, how do you do that dispute? How do they go about doing that?
There are many ways you can make a dispute. You can make a dispute in writing, by telephone, through the mail, online for the national credit reporting agencies. If you want to make a dispute with the national credit reporting agencies, you can go to each of their websites, again, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, and the information will be on those websites about how to contact them, all of those ways. If you get a copy of your credit report through annualcreditreport.com or one of the other ways we've discussed, there should be information included within your rights with the credit report that tells you how to make a dispute. All the correct address to send the dispute to, the correct telephone number to call, and those types of things. So how to make a dispute is where to send it, and how to make it is included in all of those areas. In terms of what to include in your dispute, it really depends on the nature of your dispute. For example, one item that is the topic of disputes a lot is this issue of identity theft, along the lines of the data breach issue that was mentioned by Ben earlier. If someone steals your identity, then you'll probably start receiving lots of letters in the mail that you don't recognize, or start receiving lots of phone calls that you don't from companies that you don't recognize because you never opened an account with them. And so what you want to do if those things start happening is get a copy of your credit reports, review them to see if they contain any information or accounts that you didn't open, and then you can make a dispute and follow the procedures to make a dispute to try to get those inaccurate things removed from your credit file.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think too, to echo what Tony said also with the denial side of things, if it is objective and accurate, that's one thing. But one thing that's troubling to us, and one of the things of messages that we wanted to advance today, is that we've seen discriminatory practices. We've seen predatory lending. We've seen discriminatory practices with regard to race. We've seen folks that have had the same profile, let's say, applying for a mortgage, and based on a race may get a different interest rate or be charged differently. And these cases have been shown on 2020 and Dateline and otherwise nationally, and you can kind of see some of the predatory lending practices. In Alabama in particular, which does not have a cap on interest rates and payday lenders can do business in Alabama, we worked, and our law firm worked with the Attorney General of Georgia to put payday lenders out of business in Georgia. We have a strong usury statute in Georgia and a cap on interest rates that you can only charge a certain rate. In Alabama, that doesn't apply. So it's important to know and for the viewers to understand there's a lot more that goes into this in terms of credit reporting, denial of credit, and an inability maybe to be approved for a mortgage or to be approved for a loan or a line of credit or a car loan, or maybe we're discriminated against and we're approved, but the terms aren't as good as they should have been because the credit's pretty clean, but maybe they're doing things in a discriminatory way. And so that's something obviously that we're always want to know about and are happy to help if we see if anybody has experienced anything like that.
Oh, wow. Wow. Woo. You all have so much experience in this. I really didn't know that we had someone that specialized in this in our community. And that's what I think is so helpful for the community. The next one is, what can a person do if their credit report is wrong?
Well, there are lots of things a person can do if their credit report is wrong or contains inaccurate information. We've talked about a few of those, but there are others as well. In addition to writing a letter or making a phone call or sending an email or making an online dispute with the credit reporting agencies, if that doesn't work and that doesn't result in the inaccurate information being removed from your file, then consumers can also contact the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, and make a dispute with that organization. It's a federal organization. It has regulatory oversight of the credit reporting agencies. And what the CFPB will do is they will contact the credit reporting agency, relay that dispute, and then that process will be carried out so that a consumer can, hopefully achieve accuracy through that process with the CFPB. In the case of identity theft, if a consumer finds something inaccurate on their credit report, in addition to just sending in a letter, there are some other tools that they have available to them. That includes getting a police report in which you list the accounts that don't belong to you, and the police departments are very familiar with identity theft. Unfortunately, it happens a lot. Usually, they have an officer or several officers who are assigned just to assist with identity theft cases. And so, you can make a police report, you can list the accounts that don't belong to you, and you can send that in with your dispute letter. And then finally, there's the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, many years ago developed what's called a fraud affidavit. It's available online at the FTC website, and consumers can use that fraud affidavit to further support their dispute and send that in with their dispute letter to the credit reporting agencies.
Awesome. You have anything to say,
No,
Attorney
I
Finley?
think that covered it well in terms of disputes. The other thing I would just add is if you are confused in any way, to call Tony and ask, or to call our law firm, and we can kind of walk, because it's a lot to digest. I mean, it's a lot of information. And a lawyer like Tony that's been doing this 30 years is so well versed in it, I would call him if you have any questions about it.
Wow. Before we go into our next break, I would love for you to share why the field of law is so important to you. I hear 30 years for you, and you have longevity as well, but what was the defining moment or point in your life that sparked you to go into this direction?
Well, I think the reason I'm interested in consumer law is because it's so important to people's lives. Something that might seem like a minor issue, an inaccurate item on a credit report, can have a significant effect on people's lives. If you go to apply for credit, and are denied because you have an inaccurate piece of information on your credit file, it may take months and months, and in some cases years, to have that information corrected. And during that time, the consumer doesn't have access to the credit that he or she needs, and so it really can have a domino effect, because if they don't get the credit they need, then they won't be able to pay other bills that they have or take other steps that they may want to take in their financial circumstances. And so just being able to help people navigate those issues is what's important to me.
And you're so passionate about it. He wants to help everybody in the community, in the world, and we appreciate you. How about for you, Attorney Finley? Why is this so dear for you, law?
Well, the law, to begin with, my father was an attorney, and he passed away when I was 5 years old in kindergarten, and my mother on my wall in my bedroom never told me she wanted me to be a lawyer, but she had a framed portrait of lawyers on the wall, like, next to my Joe Morgan, jersey that was my favorite baseball player in Little League. So it was sort of, subliminally, but having been raised by my mother, a single parent in that way, who went back to work at Curvin's department store, paying $100 a week in 1971. I
remember Curvin's.
Oh yeah, and to see what she dealt with as a woman, and how things weren't fair with employment, and having sort of the legal DNA and background. I've always had a very, I think, strong sense of fairness and justice, and I don't care what your race is, your ethnicity, I don't care what your gender is. I think we built a law firm that's here to represent with some of the best and brightest lawyers you can find that do things at the highest level, but are here to give back to this community that helped raise us. And so that's the sense of equality and fairness. And I've always had a, kind of a stronger background, if you will, with 1 Samuel in the Bible, the story of David, when you're kind of David taking on Goliath, and that's kind of what we do lots of times, right? Wow. And we're sort of fearless in that space. The other folks don't scare us in any way, because we realize what Thomas Jefferson said, and what grounds this entire system of justice we have in all three branches of government is the judicial branch, right? I mean, the presidential, the executive branch is partisan. The other branches are partisan in Congress with the Senate and the House, but the judicial branch is what anchors us, and right by trial by jury brings in, I don't care who you are, how rich you are, how poor you are, when you go to that courthouse, a jury of your peers will determine your fate, and that's always been very powerful to me, and I think that's the way things are supposed to be, right? Everybody's treated the same, and that's sort of what drives us.
Oh, wow. Well said. That is so awe-inspiring.
Thank you.
Wow, I love it. And the community needs to know this is what's in your community serving you. And you don't just talk about it. That's what we see in the community. Because I got to know you by Attorney Nick Jackson, Brittany Gray out there in the community serving, because I had never heard of Finley Firm. But you have just solidified the service that we have been seeing in the community. And for those of you that have finally had a chance to see who Attorney Finley is and Attorney Love. Stick around, we'll be back. It's Street Talk with Loretta Rose. You're here on cable TV, it's Beam TV. We'll be back with some more questions about financial literacy and the modern era. We'll be back.
I know Beam. I used to watch cartoons and sports on their TV, and now I use their internet.
Take it from Javion Cohen, all SEC team offensive lineman.
Beam, it's the choice of champions.
Like Javion said, it is the internet choice of champions. Beam, bringing East Alabama more.
Street Talk with the Loretta Rose Show presents live and in person, a panel discussion on how to easily fix your credit report. Want to buy a house, own land, or start a business, but keep getting rejected because of your credit report? Well, the frustration is over. The experts Tony Love from Love Consumer Law and Benjamin Finley from the Finley Firm are committed to helping you clean up your act. Your credit report, that is. This live event at Troy University campus in Phoenix City, Alabama will feature a panel discussion with Q&A. We look forward to seeing you from 5 to 6 p.m. There will be light refreshments from Chick-fil-A. Come with your questions and let Tony and Benjamin help you to reach your dreams.
We're having a great time here at Troy University Riverfront campus. It's Street Talk with Loretta Rose with a panel discussion. And we have expert panelists, and they have been phenomenal. We have attorney Finley and attorney Love, and they have been answering, I call, populated consumer questions. I believe so. So we're going to get right into it. We have a few more. This one is, what if my identity has been stolen?
Well, as we've discussed at a couple of points today, you have a couple of options if your identity has been stolen. First, you can go to your local police department and complete a police report and include the items that you've identified as being the result of identity theft on that police report. You can use that to send in with a dispute letter to the consumer reporting agencies and use that to try to have your credit file corrected. One thing I would add is it's important to look not just at the accounts that don't belong to you that might be the results of identity theft, but it's also important to look at the other information in your file, such as the addresses that are being reported. A lot of times in identity theft situations, what happens is the identity thief will use your real name, your real social security number, your real date of birth, and other information about you, but they'll use a different address, not your correct address, because they don't want the bills to go to you at your address, because otherwise the fraud is discovered a lot sooner than it otherwise might be. And so when you review your credit report for accuracy, especially in the case of identity theft, be sure to dispute those other items that might appear on your file and be inaccurate, such as a bad address.
Oh, wow, wow. Have you ever had someone to come to your office regarding their wanting to get an attorney regarding their identity?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Loretta, like Tony said, it's pretty prevalent. I mean, we see it in a lot of different areas. We've seen it primarily with the data breach, where an individual, there's a recognition of a data breach, and what really becomes very, very dangerous is when someone gets your social security number. When we move forward with damages, there are all these complicated issues we deal with what's recoverable, but if they have your social security number, and as Tony said, they're pretty sophisticated to know about the addresses and to be able to kind of hide the fraud, but absolutely we've seen that.
Oh, wow. All right, we're going to get into number 6. Can the credit reporting agencies give my credit report to anybody that asks?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people think my credit report can't be given away to anybody unless I give my permission for it to be provided. Well, that's not exactly true under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. The Fair Credit Reporting Act has what's called a permissible purpose section, and it has a list of all the reasons a credit reporting agency like Experian or TransUnion can provide your credit report to a third party. You may or may not consent to all of those. Written consent is one of the permissible purposes, but other permissible purposes include things such as debt collection. If a debt collector is trying to collect a debt, it has a permissible purpose in most instances to go in and obtain a copy of your credit report. There are other times when the companies that you have an account with, Bank of America, Capital One, want to go in and conduct what's called an account review to see whether you're still current on other obligations and to see how that account is being reported. So they have a right to go in, a permissible purpose to go in, even if you don't agree, and look at your consumer report. There are some other permissible purposes, a catch-all if you have a business transaction with the company where they can go in and look at your credit report with they have a permissible purpose to look at your credit report, but those are the types of things and the types of situations where companies can go in and get a copy of your credit report, even if you don't always give them permission to do that.
Oh, wow. Whew. Do you have anything to say on that?
Nothing to add to that.
Wow, he said it well, yes. Ooh, wow. Well, I heard you mention about CFPB. What is that?
So the CFPB is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It's a federal agency. Their headquarters is in Washington, D.C., and they are charged with regulating consumer reporting agencies. They regulate other entities as well, but that's one of the main entities that they regulate. And so they conduct studies and they gather information about the practices of consumer reporting agencies, and will sometimes take actions to regulate the agencies and the conduct of the agencies to try to improve accuracy. Credit reporting at its core is all about accuracy. The goal of the Fair Credit Reporting Act is to make sure that credit reporting agencies, because they have all this information on us, get it right, and that it's accurate. And the CFPB, that's one of its tasks, is to take steps to further improve accuracy in consumer reporting.
Wow, well said. Someone in the audience had inquired about how long does item stays on a credit report?
Well, of course, there are limits under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to how long items can stay on your file. If it's an accurate item of information, it may stay on for a very long time. If it becomes delinquent, then it basically can stay on your credit file in most circumstances for a period of 7 years from a date called the date of first delinquency. And so that is a date that is provided for under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and the credit bureaus use that to start counting the 7 years after you're first delinquent on account before it has to come off of your file.
Tony, will you share also with the audience a case that we all worked on together where it's over 7 years, right? And they still try to collect, and sort of talk about that a little bit in terms of what the remedies can include?
Well, of course. So in some instances, particularly in instances involving companies that buy bad debts, called debt buyers, you may have a debt that you, for whatever reason, weren't able to pay many years ago, and haven't received any bills on it in years and years, but if one of these bad debt buyers comes along and purchases that debt, they might engage, not all of them, but some of them may having been caught engaging in a practice called re-aging the debt. And so they will manipulate or not report that date of first delinquency, and so that results in the account that should have been purged from your file within 7 years staying on even longer than 7 years. And so, as Ben mentioned, we worked on a case together that involved that type of allegation. And so if you notice anything like that on your credit file, where you see a debt that's been purchased by a third party and it's on your credit file 10 or 12 or even many more years later after you first became delinquent on it, then you have certain rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, including the right to bring a lawsuit against them for reporting that information inaccurately. And under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, if you decide to go that route, the statute provides for certain remedies to consumers. They are entitled, for example, to recover their actual damages, and that means things like out-of-pocket expenses or higher interest rates that have been paid because of the inaccurate information. There's also a penalty, statutory damages penalty of up to $1,000 per violation. And then in consumer protection law, a lot of statutes, including the Fair Credit Reporting Act, have what's called a fee shifting provision. That means that the consumer doesn't have to pay the lawyer. The consumer only has to pay, the company that violates the Fair Credit Reporting Act has to pay the fees if the consumer prevails in the lawsuit. And that's an important tool for consumers so they don't have to come out of pocket to pay lawyers to help them in these consumer protection cases.
Oh, wow, wow, amazing.
Yeah, no, it's one of the few things, and it's why Congress and the administrations have been so adamant about this, because if you have a consumer that has, let's say, a $5,000 dispute, they don't want to spend $10,000 on lawyers. It wouldn't make any sense, right?
True.
But if their attorney's fees can be paid and the risk is shifted to Tony and let's say our firm in that context, we'll take it on. It doesn't cost the consumer anything, and they can get their credit, back on track. But it's also, most consumers would have no idea that this is a 7-year rule, right? So there's all this old bad debt. Well, we've dealt with companies that'll buy bad credit card debt, Visa, Amex, that's been out there forever, purchase the credit card debt, and their business model is to pay pennies on the dollar, maybe 10 cents on the dollar, to get all that hundreds of millions of dollars in debt, right, of debt that they think is recoverable, and then they'll go after it, and it's a business model where they get a percentage of what they're able to collect. Well, part of what we found is it includes some shady practices going outside of the 7 years, and it doesn't educate the consumer about the fact that they're in violation of the statute. And as Tony said, it's a fee-shifting statute that we can recover on behalf of consumers.
Oh, wow. Wow, this is so great, great information. Whoa, and I hope we have college students that are tuned in as well.
Yes.
You know, because
Right.
a lot of time they're getting all of these credit cards offers, because my daughter, she's a senior in college, and she was like, I got this credit card. Girl, don't mess with it. don't do it, you know. And so I tell her, we're going to stick with one and let that, you know, be manageable for you, but I don't want her, I just try to share my experience because no one told me, and I had to learn the hard way.
Right. Well, and Loretta, we touched on this too, and I'm glad we're at Troy University. I mean, because we've talked about, and you and Tony and I have talked about things like how important it would have been in high school if we had been educated in this financial literacy space. If there was a class on financial literacy in high school that taught you how to buy a house, how to invest in a mutual fund, about, you know, pre-tax types of investments, 401ks, you know, and other types of qualified plans, as well as long-term financial planning, reducing debt, you know, keep realizing that if you put credit card debt on you and you don't pay that initially, you're going to pay 18-19% on a hamburger or groceries and finance that at a rate which causes it to be far more expensive. And if you can retire that, you'll be in a better position. But the younger you can bring this message, I think the better off and more educated, and we'll have less issues with it, obviously.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, we're at question number 7. What can I do if I'm denied credit?
Well, one of the rights that consumers have under the Fair Credit Reporting Act is the right to receive what's called an adverse action letter if you're denied credit. So whenever you go online and apply for credit, apply in person, if you're denied, the company that denies you based on your credit report is required to send you one of these adverse action letters. And within that adverse action letter, it should provide you with the reason that you've been denied, and it should also provide you with the name of the consumer reporting agency they use to make that decision. And so when you receive that letter, you can obtain a copy of your credit report from that credit reporting agency through one of the ways that we discussed earlier, and then review it for inaccuracy, and then start making your disputes to try to get it cleaned up. A lot of times, unfortunately, when people are denied credit, they haven't reviewed their credit report before going to apply for credit. And so that's one thing that we sometimes counsel people to do, is before you go out and make a major purchase, look at your free credit report first and find out if there's anything on it that's inaccurate, especially if you're about to make a major purchase like a house or a car, or if you're going to apply for a job. Make sure you know before you go what's on your credit report so that you can make those disputes beforehand.
Absolutely. Good advice.
Yeah, it's great advice from Tony. And I think, too, in terms of denial of credit, and, you know, one other thing to emphasize is, you know, where we have seen things in a discriminatory way, where we have seen things where, you know, two individuals, one may receive better credit, may receive more favorable terms, or may have been denied credit. So if you have a loan that you have been denied where you're trying to buy a house, call us. All right, and let us look at it. It may be that the credit is the issue, and we can talk and help you in that space. It may be that there are other issues and other things that went into the denial of the loan. We don't know. But if you feel that way, that you've been unfairly treated, there are federal and state laws that are designed to protect, and you know, consumers need to know about them.
Wow, wow. For those that are watching, I'm sure there are some people that are watching. What is the first step to do? And for some of them that are not, because I remember years ago we could call the 1-800 number to get our credit report, but now you can just go online and access it. What is the first step for them that are watching?
I think the first step should be to go to one of the websites, probably annualcreditreport.com that we mentioned, and just obtain a copy of your 3 credit reports from the national credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. That's a great starting point. If you find information across those credit reports that's inaccurate, then the next step is try to determine why it's inaccurate. For example, if you're the victim of identity theft, then you want to handle it one way, but if it's inaccurate inaccurate for a different reason, such as a balance that you paid down to zero and it's still reporting the full balance even though you paid it off, that's still an inaccuracy, and it's an important inaccuracy. And so you need to determine what those inaccuracies are and then start making your disputes to try to clean up the credit report so that you'll have an accurate credit report before you go apply for credit for a job.
Awesome, good advice. All right, we have 2 more and then we're gonna get to Q&A. Number 8, what if I make a dispute and the credit reporting agency just won't fix it?
Well, unfortunately, in my practice, I see situations like that quite a bit, where the consumer, before they ever reached out to me, has done their best. They've gone to some of these websites we've discussed, they've pulled copies of their credit reports, they've gotten a police report, they've done all the things that you would expect someone to do to try to get their credit report cleaned up, and for various reasons, it just doesn't happen. That's when the Fair Credit Reporting Act steps in to the point of needing to hire a lawyer and to potentially bring a lawsuit in order to force the companies to to remove the inaccuracies and issue a correct credit report about you. If it comes to that, then most of those lawsuits are filed in federal court. It's a federal statute, and as we discussed before, it allows you to seek a recovery of your actual out-of-pocket damages. It also allows you to recover for emotional distress. A lot of times consumers who have been through this for years and years have been fighting one inaccurate account for years and years, have suffered some emotional distress. It's incredibly aggravating and stressful for consumers to have to deal with this and devote so much time to it and be denied for credit over and over again, even after they've disputed the item. So unfortunately, if you don't have success in making your disputes by yourself and having it corrected, the next step really is to hire an attorney and pursue your rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act.
Wow, I love it that you're giving the community and the viewers some tips. And if you can't get it resolved on your own, there is a next step. So we appreciate that. You have anything to say about that?
I just agree with Tony completely with that. That's call us. We can help and kind of cut through a lot of it and see, where your claim may lie. But we need the information. But call us and we can help.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, our final question. All right, how can people learn more about the rights they have under the FCRA?
There's a lot of information online. We've mentioned the CFPB a few times. If you go to the CFPB website, you can find all your rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Whenever you obtain a copy of your consumer disclosure through the annual credit report website, you also receive a copy of your rights under the FCRA. So those are 2 pretty common sources to learn about your rights under the FCRA, and also to talk to a lawyer. Our firms both offer consultations if people have problems with their credit reports, or if they pull the rights off of the website and maybe don't understand something. We're here to help, and we're here to explain those rights maybe in a down-to-earth manner that people can understand, and we can help them really kind of work through all the rights that they have under that statute.
Love it, love it. Anything you got to say?
No,
Attorney Finley?
No, I think Tony covered it well. I mean, we're here to help, and that's the whole purpose of this. And I just can't thank you enough, Loretta, for what you're doing and allowing us to have a platform to discuss this and to communicate and to provide information. And we're here to help.
Absolutely, I love it. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with some Q&A. We have a couple of questions from our audience. It's Street Talk with Loretta Rose is a panel discussion show with the experts, Attorney Finley and Attorney Love. Stick around, we'll be back after this. Welcome back. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in to Street Talk with Loretta Rose, panel discussion show on location at Troy University Riverfront campus. Our panelist has been so gracious to share some valuable information with the community, and also, I would like to say, to the world. All right, so we're at our Q&A, which is our last segment, and we have some very great questions. Don't you think so, guys?
Absolutely.
I can't wait for the community to hear.
Yeah.
So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and our assistant, she will come and share a mic with you so you can share. And can I please let everyone know who you are? Because she's such a blessing. This is Dr. Rosser-Mims, who is the Vice Chancellor of Troy University Riverfront campus, and she is such a servant leader. Thank you so much for being a part.
Thank you, Loretta. Thank you so much for both attorneys being here and sharing your wisdom. I have a question concerning credit repair companies. It seems to me over the last 5 to 8 years, there seems to have been an uptick in the number of companies that are available. What advice do you give consumers in the use of credit repair companies?
That's real good.
That's a great question, and you're right.
It's a great question.
There have been increases in the number of credit repair organizations out there over the last decade or so, and how often they advertise their services and things like that. I guess the one piece of advice I would give to consumers is be careful. A lot of times these credit repair companies are doing things that consumers can do themselves, making disputes with the credit reporting agencies, getting copies of their credit reports, and they're being charged a fee for doing things that they could do on their own. That's not to say that there can't be some value add in some instances, but I would just again urge extreme caution in making sure that you're not paying for something that you could do yourself. For example, sending in a dispute letter a month and paying a fee for that. You know, you could send in a dispute letter every month on your own. Another important issue is you only want to make disputes with the credit reporting agencies of information that's actually inaccurate. You don't want to make a dispute of something that is not inaccurate, because that's just, you know, the Fair Credit Reporting Act is focused on accuracy. And so with, you know, credit repair organization, you want to be careful to make sure that you know what they're saying on your behalf. And if you aren't watching the letters they're sending in on your behalf or monitoring the phone calls they might make on your behalf, then they may say something that you wouldn't have authorized if you had seen it before they did it on your behalf. So be careful about giving them some sort of blanket authorization to make any dispute on your behalf before you see what it actually is.
Great question, because she's right. It has populated. Wow. Anything you want to say, Attorney
No, I
Finley?
totally agree that it has been. And like in anything, you've got more problems with issues like that. So these companies pop up, and as Tony said, they'll charge a fee related to it. I think to repair credit, though, I think the advice is to follow exactly what Tony said. But in addition, continue to work on financial literacy and understand interest rates and understand borrowing and understand the fact that paying off and have a very clean history of payments, right, over a long period of time, particularly to the younger audience that's watching this, they've got to understand, you know, the expense associated with this. For example, my son in college would take an Uber, right, to just drive around and to take him to different places. And I'm like, okay, that cost $24 when you did that, and it cost $26 when you did that. Let's talk about that for a minute, okay? All right, so that would have, I was talking to him about it, was like $50 he spent. I said, okay, that would have bought you one share of Aflac stock, which pays a dividend of 40 cents per share. Let's talk about what that would have included, and let's talk about you do that every day, and then let's talk about that the entire time you're in college. Now let's talk about spending the $50 over the course of a 20 or 30 or 40 year horizon, and to show him that. Another thing that we tried to, we represent a lot of college athletes with name, image, and likeness who now can be paid. And so we've shown them things like, look, if the school gives you a free place to stay and they give you the food for free, and you're going to get extra money for name, image, and likeness, you know, invest in a Roth IRA, put your money away, take out, and I've done this with these kids where I'll take out my phone, and I invite everybody to do this in this audience. Go to your computer or go to your phone and type in compound interest calculator. Compound interest calculator, and plug in numbers, what $1,000 would be worth right, at an average interest rate of 8 to 10% over the course of 20 years or 30 years. Now, take $1,000, and what if you could invest another $200 a month or $300 a month? Then start throwing in numbers, 100,000, a million, and you'll see that under the rule of 72, money doubles every 7 years roughly at about a 10% rate. So that the 100,000 becomes 2, but the 2 becomes 4, the 4 becomes 8. 800,000 becomes $1,600,000. And if you're young and have a longer horizon to invest, you don't have to have a lot. The key is time and consistency, right? So to get into and avoid all these issues with credit reporting companies, let's start the blocking and tackling starts, right, with the decisions that you make every day when you buy something, right? So that's what I think is in terms of credit reporting, you won't have a problem if you engage in some of the things that I think I'm suggesting could work for all of us at any age.
Wow. I just had an aha moment. And I'm sure you did too. Oh, that was a lot. That was so awesome.
I've got 2 children that I can, I could take the rest
I
of the
hear
program
the
if you
daddy.
want to hear it.
I hear the daddy.
I've got one that does this and one that does that. And,
One does the opposite, huh?
You got that right. So they're raised the same, but financially, and they're both bright
Wow.
children, Loretta, but
Woo.
anyway.
Wow.
So.
Grab a hold of that. That is some real nuggets right there. Whoa. Woo. That was good. Next question. Doc, over here. Mr. Cooper, Dr. Cooper. He gonna straighten you up. He'll align you. He's gonna align you. Chiropractor,
He's
Dr. Cooper.
financially sound, I can tell you.
No, when I first got to school, I knew nothing about. In fact, the guy said, "You worry about your credit being stolen." I said, "Listen, if they can buy a house or car with my credit, do it, and then I want to find them to figure out how to get it, because I could do anything with it." But I always wondered how, when you would go to Equifax or go to TransUnion, one of these companies, you would build our credit, oh, your credit is this, right? You're doing 780, whatever you have. Fantastic. And you'd go to buy a car or a house, and they would come out with a different credit score than what the same agencies told you had just a few days before. And there's no way, it didn't seem at the time, to be able to dispute or do anything about it, because you didn't understand where these numbers were coming from versus the numbers they were telling you from when you go and you even ask questions of the agency. So if you can tell us how that process works and what can you do to deal with that, let's find a way to get it right.
That's another good one.
That is a really good question, and credit scores are a bit mysterious when it comes to the access to them and understanding how they're calculated. The original credit score, one of the original credit scores, was called a FICO score. I think a lot of people have heard of the FICO score, and that's typically the score that you're going to receive from one of the credit reporting agencies when you ask for your credit score. I think what a lot of us are not aware of until we learn about it is there are lots of credit scores, dozens and dozens and dozens of credit scores that are built on the credit file that you have with each credit reporting agency. So you have a main credit file that has your name, your address, all the accounts that you have, et cetera, and that credit file information can be used, and algorithms, credit scoring algorithms, can be applied to that information, but they use different models. For example, if you're going to go and apply to purchase a car, the car dealership may not want your FICO score. They may want, let's just make up a name, the, FICO Auto 123 score, which is similar, and it's based on the same information in your credit file, but it might put more weight on one variable than the other variable in your file information. Same thing for a mortgage. If you go and apply for a mortgage, they typically will get credit scores from all 3 credit reporting agencies, but depending on the company, they might get a different type of credit score that's tailored more and more heavily weighted in the algorithm towards your history of paying your mortgages on time. And so that's the reason you might see a credit score online through Credit Karma or one of these other sources that says, gives you one number, and yet a few days later when you're at the car dealership, you're trying to buy a car, it's a different number because they're using a different modeling algorithm for that. It's a different product.
Wow. Ooh, wow, good. That's a good one. Thank you. I love it that you're not only providing resources, but solutions in helping the people. I love it. All right, we have questions over here. Okay. Good afternoon.
So what can legally be reported to your credit report? For instance, can medical debt be reported, or you mentioned car insurance? Can that be reported?
So what legally can be reported on your credit report?
Well, that's a good question. Typically, the things that can be reported are any accounts that you open with banks or credit card companies or mortgage companies or auto lenders. Those types of things are sort of the core accounts that appear in your credit report. Also, in your credit report is identification information about you, and that comes in from the various companies that are reporting these accounts. Things like your name, your social security number, your date of birth, your addresses, which we've talked about a few times. So that type of ID information can be included in a consumer report. Also, there's a section in your consumer report called the inquiry section, and that's a list of the companies who have requested a copy of your consumer report, typically over the last 2 years, and that's information that's included in your consumer report as well. With respect to medical debt, that information is shielded more by the Fair Credit Reporting Act. A lot of times, the way that medical debt appears on our consumer reports is when we're, for whatever reason, a medical debt isn't paid and it's turned over to a collection agency. And then the collection agency will report the debt. They can't report anything that shows the type of treatment that was received, but they can report the debt as a collection account typically. Now, there are some efforts underway to limit the amount of medical debt that can be reported through credit collection agencies or otherwise. That's a hot topic right now. So I anticipate that over time, we'll see less medical related debt on consumer reports, but right now it can in those limited ways be reported on your consumer report.
Great question. Thank you so much for asking. We have another audience question.
Yeah, so a member of the audience wanted me to ask this, but I'm interested in hearing, Tony, your response as well. Can you describe the difference between a hard inquiry and a soft inquiry?
That's a good question. Yes. So again, on the inquiry section of your credit report, it will show all the companies that have requested and received a copy of your credit report, usually over the last 2 years. And there are different kinds of inquiries. There's what's called a hard inquiry, which is an instance where you actually go and apply for credit. You initiate it. You are the one who fills out the application. That's a hard inquiry. If you go to the car dealership or apply for a mortgage or a new credit card, that will show up on your credit report as what's called a hard inquiry. Hard inquiries will affect your credit score. If you apply for a number of credit items and don't receive them, then in some algorithms that will lower your credit score because the algorithm is designed to assume that you didn't get credit because you weren't a good credit risk. And so it will lower your credit score based upon those numerous inquiries. That's why it's important to not have a lot of instances where you apply for the credit and don't get it. Another reason why inaccuracy is harmful, because if you have inaccurate information on your credit report and you apply for credit and you're denied based on that inaccuracy, then you have a hard inquiry on your credit file that really wasn't your fault, where there's no corresponding open account. But that's what a hard inquiry is. Another type of inquiry, which is a soft inquiry, is called an account review. That's where your existing creditors can come in and take a look at your credit file. Usually in your cardholder agreement or when you sign up for a new account, you give them permission to do that. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, they have a permissible purpose to do that anyway when you have an account with them. So they can come in and conduct that type of account review inquiry, which is a soft inquiry. The main difference between hard inquiries and soft inquiries is hard inquiries will affect your credit score and soft inquiries will not. You can have 1,000 soft inquiries on your credit file and it will not affect your credit score. Another type of soft inquiry is called a promotional inquiry. Every day when we go to the mailbox, we open it and there's usually some junk mail in there with somebody trying to get us to open a credit card or buy something. A lot of times those are triggered by these promotional inquiries. And that is a situation where a company will approach a consumer reporting agency and ask for a list of consumers that meet certain criteria. For example, give us everybody that lives in this zip code and had a late payment on their mortgage account in the last 30 days. Boom, a list is created. These firm offers of credit go out. Your mailbox is loaded up with them. That's another example of a soft inquiry, but again, that would not affect your credit score one way or the other.
Wow, awesome, great information. Do we have any other questions before we close out? Those were really, really great. Great, we have one more? Okay.
How can I say this? I do know someone that was applying for credit and it was denied because they found out when they were a child, accounts had been opened in their name. And later on, when they became older to open accounts for themselves, to apply for credit, they were denied because of that. So I don't know, what advice do you have for them as far as steps to take?
That's a good question, because our daughter had mentioned about that to some of her peers too. Was in college and didn't know things was on their credit. They thinking they got clean credit, but unfortunately, their parents had used. I can't even believe it either. But that's a reality for some people.
Sure.
So how do they fix that?
Well, that unfortunately, I've seen that a number of times in my practice, and usually it is a situation of family fraud, where a family member gets access to the social security number of the children before the children even know what a social security number is, and then use that to open accounts in using the child's social security number and perhaps name and other information. It's a very difficult subcategory of identity theft, and the reason it's so difficult to fix that and get that inaccurate information off your file compared to other types of identity theft like dumpster diving or hacking or something like that, where they don't have access to all of your information, is because the family member is so closely connected to that person and knows where they live and knows that they're not going to complain and has access to all of their financial information, even as a young child, or personal information, that it really makes it very difficult to get that type of inaccuracy off the credit file. But it's still possible, and the way to do that is through the other tools that we've talked about before, such as going and filing a police report, explaining that it's not your account, that you never authorized anyone to use your social security number to open that account. And so, it's really the same process, but it is a very complex issue when it's a family fraud situation.
Wow, wow. Whew. Any more questions? All right, well, thank you guys. Can we give our expert panelists a hand? Awesome, great. Wow, but before we get ready to close out, I would love for you gentlemen to tell us your location and how, if someone is watching, if they want to reach out to you and contact you, how can they?
Right, thank you, Loretta. You can contact us. Our offices are in Atlanta and Columbus. Our Columbus office is right across the bridge from Troy University. We're on 13th Street. Right when you cross over the bridge into Columbus, we're down on the right, 200 13th Street. We're right at the corner of 13th Street and 2nd Avenue. And you can reach us anytime. Our phone number in Columbus is 706-322-6226, or on the web at thefinleyfirm.com, or look up our attorneys, Nick Jackson, Kirk Reed, Travis Hargrove, Amy Doherty, and myself locally, as well as Matt Gibson and Mary Beth Gibson in Atlanta, and Daniel Hendricks. But the Columbus and Phoenix City folks are here locally. We're your neighbors, we're your friends. We grew up here, we live here in this community, understand it, and I'm more than happy for anybody to call me anytime. My cell phone number is 404-668-3179. We pride ourselves on being accessible and being here, and we're from here, and we're giving back in every way we can. So thank you for having us, Loretta.
Absolutely, it was an honor, and that means so much. I mean, we can feel the sincerity as you speak. Thank you so much. Attorney Love.
Well, thank you, Loretta. We really appreciate being
you.
here today. My office is located in Atlanta, Georgia. My practice is national. I handle Fair Credit Reporting Act cases all over the country in many different courts. I have appeared in courts in dozens of states across the country over the last 20 years. And so I'm happy to talk to people about their credit reporting problems here in Georgia, Alabama, or other states, wherever they may live at the time. My website is www.loveconsumerlaw.com. That's where you can find all the information about me and my firm. And the best way to reach me typically is by email. My email address is tlove@loveconsumerlaw.com. And like Ben said, I'm happy to speak with anybody about their credit reporting issues, to provide information, to explain their rights, and any other questions they may have.
Well said.
Yeah, and Loretta, I just want to echo that and really emphasize this, that our law firm is designed to help everybody in this community. And we have outstanding lawyers, but we also work with some of the best and brightest lawyers in the country, including Tony Love, in this space. There's no one you're going to find that's more knowledgeable in this practice area than Tony Love. And for him to be here is a wonderful thing, to understand the accessibility, to have a lawyer so credentialed and at that level to help everybody, no matter what walk of life you're in and where you are, but we're here and here for you. So we work very closely in a collaborative way. And Kirk Reed and Tony, as an example, have worked together for years in this space, 20, 25 years. So our relationship is with Tony goes way back, and we work very closely with him every day.
Well, thank you again. And I want to let the community know as well, in the audience, this was their idea. They wanted to share this with the community regarding financial literacy. And I thought it would be a great idea to have it as a panel discussion and with the live audience, because we want to empower the community with the knowledge. So thank you again for entrusting the platform, okay? Thank you. You all are welcome. I'm looking forward to the next one, because I heard there may be one on credit score maybe coming. So
we're happy to talk about that as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Loretta.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, we want to thank Troy University, our host venue. Thank you so much. And Beam Cable Television Network out of East Alabama. Thank you so much for broadcasting. Our live audience, thank you so much. And our production crew. You've been watching Street Talk with Loretta Rose, on location in Phoenix City, Alabama. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.